Start with Butter.
Hey,
There we go. Good evening. This is the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 12, 2016. The agenda for this evening, is Police Chief is going to give us an update on the COPS grant program. Andrew Samarco is here to give us an open space plan update. And then we have some reserve fund transfers. We'll be going through the 2016 year-end transfers of funds and the 2018 budget calendar review and discussion, and as well as contact assignments. We have several people missing, so we might put that off until our next meeting. Bonnie's going to give us a brief update on open space properties that are in the crosshairs for the town at this point, I guess. And then I'd like to have members' updates, and we don't have minutes this week, so we won't be doing that. And then I'm sure everybody's waiting for the most important thing, the meeting adjournment. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite Chief up to give us a brief update on the COPS grant.
Thank you. Good evening, all. How's everyone? Summertime is here. As you may remember, I came to the Fincom back in over the last budget cycle. Fincom supported me for the 19th officer. The selectmen gave me 18 with the caveat I would be coming back to them in September, because they wanted to see, how state aid worked out, how receipts were, things like that. There was no guarantee of the 19th, but the 18th is being hired even as we speak right now. We're in the middle of that process. In the meantime, the COPS grant had come out, so I asked permission from the board to apply for it. But as I told the board, and I would say to you, the COPS grant is only there to save us some money. It's not there if there isn't the money there to pick up the tab in the end. I mean, the full cost of an officer in, let's just say, year 4, and this is total salary, total bennies, total everything, is $102,701. That's what it costs for at that point, it'd be an officer who's been here for 4 years. So, again, if the money is not there to increase the budget, to hire the 19th officer, then I would say, obviously, there's no way to do that, at this point. So, the way I saw it work best in the past, I'll be quite honest with you, it was a number of years ago it still would have been Chief O'Day, and Mark Haddad was here. Again, the money was transferred into the budget, and that way it was carried forward, and the COPS grant money as it came in just went into the general fund. So that way, at the budget cycle, it wasn't like saying, okay, so the first year it's a $42,000 cost to the town of Littleton per se with what the COPS grant would cover. Second year is 51, third year is 56, and then it goes up to the full 102. This way it's carried forward for the 3 years. The COP grant money just goes back in and takes care of it. This 19th officer would be utilized to basically, our current structure runs that we have 2 detectives. One detective is really assigned to the schools as the SRO. And we have found the need in the community where we need the other investigator full-time. And the schools are in need of, just having that SRO within the school system. As, for lack of a better term, as life has changed for all of us with opiate abuse and mental health issues, coming to the forefront for all of us, the SRO is ever more important within the school system. Right now, we call the SRO away probably a third to 50% of the time from his duties in the schools because, we have other needs. And especially when you're doing drug investigations and, overdose investigations, things of that nature, they're lengthy. There's not something that just happens in a half an hour. You know, these are days, weeks, months for drug investigations. You know, so our overtime tends to run a little higher in the bureau because of that, and that's, you know, in this day and age, and I'm sure all of you have seen this in your own workforces now. Workforces don't like to work overtime like they used to. You know, the ones that do are the far and few betweens, you know, and they want to come in, make their living wage, work their 40 or, 50 hours and be done. And so, you know, the days of old, like when I used to work and would work 4 and 5 doubles in a row and really not think about it, those days just don't occur anymore in the workforce from what I've seen and other chiefs have seen. So, you know, we're a growing community. We have the same issues that every other community has. Not that Littleton's any different with its opiate problems or its mental health problems or its investigations. I will say, and I think Deputy Chief Patterson can also attest to this, as he came out of the Bureau to become the Deputy Chief as a sergeant in charge of the Bureau, the investigations also are much more technical. The old day of breaking and enterings, they still occur. They certainly do not occur with the frequency that they used to. Now it's much more white collar. It's much more. There's a lot more, larcenies and embezzlements, things like that. And again, they're time consuming. They're, it's the breaking and enterings. I'm not saying they weren't time consuming, but you were looking typically for a group or a pair or 3 that were doing breaks all around us. And when one of us finally solved it, we'd solve 100 breaks, literally, and that's the way it would go. And today, it's it's just, the changes happened. The board and the Fincom saw fit to with the 18th, it gives us our extra coverage on 3 to 11s. This detective would also go on a night shift. It would not be would not be on a day shift personnel, which will help out with some of our evening overtime that occurs in the bureau, and again, give us an extra body around at night when we tend to have the least amount of coverage. So realistically, I looked at the COPS grant is if the 2 boards in the end or this board continues to support me for the 19th, if Bonnie in the end finds that there are sufficient funds to make this sustainable. This is I would not say that the COPS grant is a way to it runs out in 3 years. So, to make it sustainable, this is only a way to, I guess, get the town $125,000 back if it is willing to move forward and support it.
So the first year, assuming you're successful,
Go ahead.
when will the money be available?
Well, we won't find out until September, October, whether we even, we got the grant.
Right.
The last time we were about 3 points shy on the last one, so we went back, rehoned, and re-put it together again, and we'll see what happened. We finished ahead of larger cities like Worcester and Fall River and other places, which surprised me, but some of ours was because it's dedicated right to the school system, which is one of the parameters. So we wouldn't find out till September, October, which is when I go back to the
Right.
selectmen to talk to them,
But assuming you're successful, then when would you expect the officer to be on board? And when would we have to start paying them? So for this fiscal year, what is the impact?
I guess I would probably not shoot for it. If the board was to approve it in September, it would obviously, we would have to get to a special town meeting to make, the town would have to agree to that change. So I would look for, December 1st of the year or something of that nature. Once the board approved it, we could start our hiring process, do a tentative hiring. If we get done before, there's a special, because, obviously, if both board supports it and there's more money that has to go into the budget, that's gonna be approved by not only you and the board, but then so.
So it's basically a half-year impact, assuming everything
For the first
lined
year,
up
yes.
and fell in.
For the first year,
It's a
correct.
half-year, okay.
So Chief, explain to me, I'm looking at these numbers for this COPS grant. It doesn't look like it covers the entire cost of.
It certainly doesn't. I mean,
It's about half.
It's, obviously an employee as you can see, and these numbers were updated, especially OPEB from the last time, we got a better number from,
The actuary.
the actuary on OPEB. Yeah, I mean, it covers $125,000 over 3 years, and so that's not even, I mean, if you look at it.
Just not shy under half of
Third,
what the
actually.
cost is.
The COPS grant, the first year would be 41.6, second year 41.6, third year 41.6, so basically, it basically covers the benefit package.
Right.
Is really what it picks up, and the rest of the tab, you know, and I haven't gone in yet to the budget yet and really played around yet to see what I feel I can adjust out of, whether it be some overtime offset or something like that. I haven't done that part of it yet.
Do you have to hire the officer before you can get the grant? Or can you apply for the grant, get approved for the grant, then hire the officer?
Yeah, we don't, well, if we were hiring just strictly because of the grant, we wouldn't hire until we were notified.
In some cases, some of those
Yeah.
grants, you
No,
have
no, I
to commit
know
to
what
it
you're saying.
before.
No, there's no commitment. Just because we applied for the grant doesn't also mean that in the end, we have to take the grant. If the town decides, if the Fincom in the end decides, not to support the 19th now, and the Board of Selectmen decides that, or town meeting decides that, then, we tell the federal government that we're not taking the grant in the end.
No, year one says it would be worth about $41,000 to the town, 41.6. Is that in fiscal year 17, we get 41,000, or is it 41,000 over 12 months?
It's 41,000 over 12 months.
Okay,
So it's
so,
not, right now, this isn't based on the fiscal year, because, you don't know when they're gonna land. I mean, they say they'll notify us in September, October, but, the federal government is
I was
notoriously.
thinking if it was fiscal year, then you'd actually be
You almost
better
cover.
off the first year, but if it's over 12 months.
Right, it's
you're
over,
toast.
it's all paid out over a 12-month
Yeah,
period.
okay. All right.
Makes sense.
So by September, you'll have a better feel for
September, October,
whether you can,
Oh.
whether you can find a way to cover the other 55 or 60 grand.
Well, no, I won't be able to cover the 55, but I'll know what number I'll be able to pull on that. I'm gonna, we're gonna sit down with the deputy and go over that.
It wouldn't be that much for the rest of the fiscal year anyway, probably, right?
Well, no, but the run rate is at
Right,
that level.
right.
So, okay.
So, two comments I would make. One is just for the TV audience, SRO is School Resource Officer, right? So
Yes,
everybody
it is, sorry.
knows what that is.
I think everyone knows the acronym.
And the other thing, I would just say, I appreciate the fact that you're so upfront with the numbers and then not trying to do a bait and switch, like, oh, if we get this money, we hire them and then decide later. I really appreciate your approach, just being frank about the numbers and putting it all out there. I really do.
Thank you. I think it's better. It's better not to have any surprise. The 3-year surprise comes, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not 46 anymore I need, it's, 100 and, I need the other 46 that you didn't give me before. So that doesn't make any sense to me.
Appreciate that.
Anything else, Chief?
Chief, how often is that grant available? Is it every year or?
You never know. It depends on, appropriations. It's been there the last 2 years. It hadn't been there for the last 4 years before that. It's, it's similar to the fire, what's it called, Scott, the safe grants?
Safer grant, yeah.
It's, they happen to fund the last couple of years, but, who knows, what they'll do next year.
With the governor tangling with the legislature over, he's vetoing some of the budget items. I was reading that yesterday. Is that?
This is a federal,
This
this
is
is a federal
this is
grant.
federal?
Yeah, this is a federal grant. This has already been appropriated and, is actually old money from last October. So it's, they notoriously do that. They do it at the very tail end of when they have 2 months left, because their fiscal year runs October to October. So they do it at the end of their fiscal year.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So if you got this, there's nothing to say either. You could get it, say, yes, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna hire them with the start of the next fiscal year too, when we have a whole new budget process going.
Not if you accept the grant, no. Then
No?
then there is a time limit on when you're gonna hire. If you accept the grant, you have to have them
You know
on
what
board.
that is?
I think it's within 2 months of acceptance of the grant.
Wow, that's short.
well, a lot of, some of this is based on, because a lot of cities and everything, do this, and they're running constant exams and have, lists. and
Right.
We actually carry a list from this hiring that we're doing now,
Yeah.
so we'll actually be able to do that. So, for our hiring now, we'll actually have a list that'll be good for, a year and a half or 2 years. So,
Okay.
Good. Any other questions or comments for Chief? Great, well, thanks for coming in.
thank you.
and,
Appreciate it,
um,
appreciate your time.
Yeah, keep us up in the loop as you get closer and what your thoughts are as to the impact going forward here. So we can figure out, hopefully we can support it in the fall town meeting, but you never know.
Are you gonna talk about the regular budget later on, or do you wanna hear about some things I foresee for fall town meeting coming from my side, or?
You got more expenses?
Oh, yeah.
No.
No.
The answer is no.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
As I'm sure you've all read in the Lowell Sun about the on-again $50,000 from from the from the state government for public safety for radios. That was something that Jim Carr and myself and worked with Jim Arcero and Senator Eldridge. There's some confusion. Some say it made it through, and some said it didn't make it through. I believe it did not make it through the governor's veto pen, but it's going before the legislators' override pen. That only covers about half what the radio cost would be. When the fire department shifted to UHF, our communications system split. We're a VHF system. The fire department, because the fire departments tend to operate themselves on the UHF frequency, and that's District 6 and everybody else. The radios in the cruisers, we have UHF and VHF within the cruisers. But as soon as the officers get out of the car, our current portables are single band portables, which are VHF. The brand new technology is a few years old now, but has finally come down to a size that the radio is not the size of a brick. It's the size of our current radio. We want to upgrade because at scenes at this point, we're having to relay everything back to the fire department through the control center, which puts undue stress on the control center. These radios are about $5,000 a piece. So for the 20 of them, it's a $100,000 expense. So we're hoping that the state in the end comes through with this $50,000, and we'll be looking to, again, I'm looking at grants and other things and everything else, but I'm just warning you that I might be putting a proposal together for some amount of money to fund portables for the.
You gotta get it from the fire department. They're the one that puts you in this spot.
Yeah, really.
He actually wants some of them too. They're in the same boat. They're in the same boat. They have UHF, they can't talk to us.
It does seem that things like this, especially with all the attention now on security and so on, national security and all these things, that at least at a state level, if not at a national level, some of this stuff is coordinated more. I mean, it seems odd that you guys would be dealing with this.
But right now,
This level.
many departments, fire and police, are upgrading to the UHF. And everybody that we work with is on UHF. Groton, I take that back. Groton is the last one to switch, and they are now on the UHF, and they'll be activating it within a month.
Maybe we should have them use Snapchat. All the kids are like communicating like that, right?
I was forced into a smartphone, Fred, and I could barely use that. So you asked me to Snapchat.
Yeah.
Bonnie's right.
Pokemon.
Snapchat yesterday, it's Pokemon today.
Yeah. Just driving to trees while you're doing that, trying to
Right.
follow the Pokemon thing. So,
Okay, all right.
But I'll be back, with further as it comes, but that's it. That's enough.
Just a question, have you noticed a change in your activity or something with additional restaurants and things going on at the point? And-
Well, that's become a call center. I had brought that up to the board. I mean, last year, for a partial year, we had, I think we had like 422 calls in an 8-month period there. Some serious, some not. It's, it's a call center, just like 15 Gray Road is a call center, or Pondside, I can give you certain things. So certainly, but nothing, I mean, the things you unfortunately would expect when a lot of people get around. I mean, the medicals are down there, obviously. There are more, just because there are more people there. There are accidents, there are thefts from cars, there are thefts from stores. Shopliftings, obviously, at Market Basket and things like that have increased. And, as more store goes in, we'll see some things. But luckily for us, our restaurants, they're not nightclubs, they're restaurants. So they don't tend to bring along with the problem. And Tavern on the Square is also, they're not a nightclub. They may have entertainment occasionally, but it'll be on a case-by-case basis that they have to go before the Board of Selectmen and get the entertainment license, similar to what Great Road Kitchen do. They'll probably get, 4 or 5 times a year, and bring something in, like around New Year's or around Mother's Day, they might bring in, but, in talking to them, they have one facility, which is their Alston facility. When they bought it, it was an restaurant already established, what they thought was a restaurant, and it really was a nightclub. And he said, we got away from that right away, so, Burlington, Lowell, Northborough, the latest ones they've offered are, they want to be more of a family restaurant. The cinema will obviously change some demographics there, with the people, the hotel has been, relatively minor, anything there has been minor. But, and just so you'll know, it's booked almost full every night.
That's a good.
And the rack rate the other night was
Ka-ching, ka-ching, Bonnie?
$310 a night.
What is it?
310 a night. the other
No
night.
way.
Yep.
And what's the
That's
percentage we get on that?
Yep.
6%, we get 6%.
Last night, I stopped in after, the selectmen's meeting, and they were turning people away at 10 o'clock last night, still. And they've been doing that, on a pretty constant basis. And on weekends, they're full because Gibbet Hill in that area, they're the closest hotel to Gibbet Hill, and they provide shuttle service, so.
For weddings and.
For weddings and things like that. They book through, they've got Saturdays and Fridays and Sundays booked out into 2017, the spring of 17 already.
Can we build another one?
Well,
300 a night for a
they,
courtyard?
believe it or not, the broker's been out there looking again, because the broker who brought these people here said this is the perfect area for 2 of them. And this group is saying already, this is the perfect area for 2 of them.
Build a second one,
So.
that's great.
With everything else in Westford and Chelmsford and
We're not in Kansas anymore.
The Regency's book, they call the Marriott, and they'll say, do you have any?
The other day, they were sending people down to I think it's the Marriott down by Hanscom, was the closest place they could find any kind of rooms for people to get into. Even the 2 hotels on Devon's were maxed.
Crazy.
Are you
Okay,
seeing
good.
a spike?
For now.
I'm waiting for it, because it just opened like in May, so I'm waiting for that.
Thank you very much. I
All right.
appreciate your time.
Thank
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
It was booked solid because my job developers coming. And
Okay, next up, past Andrew Samarco and Sam are here to talk to us about the open space and recreation plan, just a brief update. And this also has a time crunch on it. You have a packet here, and that they'll be just sort of giving us an overview on, not going through the whole thing, but
Same thing that was presented last night.
Yes.
Yeah, for the selecting meeting.
This and this? No, that's
So-
water department.
So good evening,
This.
everyone. So, I guess we'll give you a quick rundown on what's been going on with the open space and recreation plan. So, let's see. So if you turn to this page in your packet, putting the plan together. So as you guys probably already know, an open space and recreation plan is basically the town's way of putting together an inventory of what we have in terms of open space and recreation, what we need, what we want. And we kind of analyze what's missing in between and what we can do to get there. So as you guys are aware, we've been working on updating the current draft of the 2016 Open Space and Recreation Plan for the last couple of years. And we've actually just finished the latest drafts. What would you like, a quick rundown of like how we got where we are, or?
But not necessarily. If you could, I think maybe just talk about the priority items and.
So, let's see, so within the plan, the community, through many public forums, a public survey, narrowed down the town's priority action items for open space and recreation to the 9 that you have before you. I don't know if you want to read through them, or the television audience real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so number 1 is protect all surface and subsurface waters. Number 2 is purchase open space of interest and farmland as it comes available and stay aware of upcoming opportunities. Number 3, create and implement a comprehensive plan for maintenance, repair, and acquisition and/or construction of adequate playing field capacity for the town. Number 4, work with the Finance Committee, you guys, to locate available funding sources. Number 5, establish partnerships with landowners and developers to preserve valuable portions of land in exchange for expanded development opportunities. Number 6, work with local conservation commissions and land trusts from contiguous towns to identify parcels of open space which might be connected across town borders. Then on the next page, number 7, improve/expand parking areas in your open space properties, including handicapped parking as applicable. Number 8, establish more bicycle and pedestrian routes on new and existing town and state-owned land. And finally, number 9, create a town historic or neighborhood conservation district.
Now, the timing on this is, it needs to be sent to the state, like post haste, right?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow, okay. And the plan at this stage is still in somewhat of a draft format.
It is, yeah.
So what happens over the next?
So basically, we're going to be submitting the current drafts to the state DCS, Department of Conservation Services, tomorrow, so that we're eligible to submit our land grant application for the Williams property, which you guys will be talking about a little later. But we have a full year after submittal to revise it, so various boards, organizations, citizens can comment on it, and we can further change things, but.
Okay. So the trigger right now was putting this in so that we can avail ourselves of grant applications
Yes.
for property that we wish to go forward on. Okay. Any questions or thoughts or comments for Andrew or Sam?
I have a question. So as part of this, are you looking to prioritize what parcels of land you want?
We are.
As a hierarchy of some sort? Because it seems like what I see, whatever comes up is the flavor of the month and we want it.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's very spontaneous at times, because you really can't predict what properties are going to be going up for sale, who wants to sell them in town, who doesn't. I don't know, it does make sense to, in a way, prioritize. I know Paul at the selectmen meeting, well, not this past selectmen meeting, but the selectmen meeting prior, had said, well, why don't we come up with some kind of criteria for properties that the town's interested in, like saying, oh, we're interested in this section of town, properties that meet certain criteria, certain characteristics, but listing properties outright might not be a good idea.
Yeah.
But
Puts more exposure on it, may increase the value. Oh, the town wants it, I want more for it.
and then again, it may upset people, because I mean, I don't know how people would feel about seeing their property on a list, you know, putting them in the town's process.
A lot of conversation has come up about prioritizing and making an actual list of properties. That's a big point of discussion and needs to come up. A lot of other towns have gone that route, and they have prioritized lists so that they know if they can act quickly. If the property that comes up is near the top of the list, yeah, we need to dig further into it, or if it's down lower, you might need discussion, but if we don't have the funds for it.
I think that's
you can
the
find that.
challenge. I mean, if we had an open bank, I think we could look at them all, but, eventually you're gonna run out of money to be able to buy these parcels of land.
Well, and the other issue with that is, and I know some of it's dependent on, how long people live and things like that. I mean, the reality of it is, right? But if you don't have the list and you're not looking at, look, it's likely that these 3 are gonna come available in the next 3 years or whatever. So then this one that's a medium one, well, it's available today and we kind of have some money, so we'll go for that. And then the next one comes available next month and now I don't have any money for it. And then the other one is a lot higher priority. So is it just, well, we'll take our chances and go, or do you try to manage this a little bit? I mean, that's really, I mean, it comes down to Greg's point, if money's no object, then it's one thing, but it is, and so how do you deal with
It's
that?
tough. It's very tough. But yeah, it should be managed in a way. I know that we're planning on gathering committees to review Chapter 61, 61B, 61A lands in the future to kind of get a hold on things, but it's tough work.
Oh, yeah, sure is, but I mean, I would think you might be able to get a kind of a short-range forecast if you're speaking to the landowners to say, what are you thinking of doing the next few years? And at least you can kind of forecast it short-term, maybe, not so much long-term.
But I mean, you mentioned all the properties are already, it's already public knowledge. You don't have to go very far to
Right.
find them.
To find it true.
Right, I know, right.
It's there.
Right. So then it comes down to the priorities again of, if it's, anyway.
Are all the properties that have come up in recent years been in Chapter 61?
The ones that are currently being developed?
No, the ones that, the ones that we're looking at possibly purchasing. Do you know? I don't know the answer to that question.
So the Williams land is under 61B currently, recreation. Smith?
Has a conservation restriction.
It's-
The conservation
Slightly
restriction
different.
was even more
Completely different, right.
restrictive. Cooper,
Cooper was under
61.
61A. The Mass DOT land, I don't think that's under anything.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that.
Okay. So it seems like the properties that have come up, most of them are in some sort of Chapter 61.
I would say so.
Of some sort, tax reduction. Okay.
Good. Well, I think, our responsibility is a long-term financial stability for the town, is what we really try to make our decisions on. So from our viewpoint, having that list would be really useful. The selectmen may have other feelings where, it may be a political hot potato to have a list versus not have a list, but I think our view would be, it would be a good financial planning tool to have some form of list. And if other towns do it, I guess it's a little harder for me to understand why it's so difficult to do it in Littleton. But that's not our call, but we can make the request for it, we can ask for it. And as a financial planning tool, I think it would be very useful. So I think that's the position I would, as an individual, would take, and would.
I agree with that. I think the more we know what we want, the better it would be to be able to try to manage that process. I agree.
So I think from our standpoint, would urge you to put that on your priority list, is to try to come up with a way to do it so that we would have the financial planning tool so we can support the activities going forward. So,
We'll certainly be looking into doing something like this, definitely in the future.
okay, great. Anything else for?
Would that list include the projected values of the land, or just list the land itself?
It varies so widely, that's, if I understand right, that's a little bit how we got in the Cooper situation, because it was, when it started, land values were low and they were looking for more, so they let it go a little more and they rose. So it's, I think values are at the time
Right.
of interest.
Yeah, the assessed values are, they're based on the current use.
Right.
So they're lower on those particular uses. Now, if you're going to convert it into marketable real estate for single-family homes, the value is going to go up.
Right.
So we absolutely have assessed values,
Right.
but they're based on current use.
And I think one important thing of this plan is that it's open space and recreation. So if in fact, Park and Rec say we need another field of some sort, does it fit within some of the properties that we own? Does it fit within some of the properties that are on this target list, if there is a target list? So I think it's not only the conservation side, but the recreation side as well. So
Definitely.
so I think that's a really important distinction between what we've sort of done in the past and what we're doing now, so. Good. Okay, Anything else for?
Well, I'm just curious, number 9, create a town historic or neighborhood conservation district. Is there something in particular in mind, or just in general, we should have one?
Well, the Historical Commission, the last couple of months, has been looking at maybe doing something like that for, like, the Foster Street area, where we have a lot of historical homes.
Okay.
And let's see, I want to say like maybe 20 years ago, the town was looking at doing something like that, but it included like the downtown commercial areas, and it just didn't fly with the townspeople at town meeting.
If you're gonna paint your house, Betsy, you better
Better
do
do
it
it now,
before the
huh?
historic.
I don't think my house is historic, but yeah, okay.
Careful what you do out there.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks for
Great,
coming,
thanks.
guys, really appreciate it.
Thanks
And,
for all your work.
No problem, have a good night.
All
I
right.
mean, as you make progress, so to keep us in the loop, I
Oh,
really appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Bonnie, do you want to do the year-end transfers on, also in your packet are the 2 sets of year-end transfers?
So this is the year-end transfers that we do that are authorized under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B. They are typically housekeeping, small transfer items. There are dollar limits and imposed under the chapter for this, so it can't be for large items like you would possibly use your reserve fund for extraordinary items. So in this case, we ended the year pretty well. We're still in process with the last warrant that we'll post on Friday. There are only a few transfers that we need to do to close out the year end. The first one identified is a public building expense. We had budgeted $375,000, and this covers all of the public buildings, so the police station, fire station, town hall here. It's the expenses with maintaining these facilities.
Not the school buildings?
Not the schools,
Okay.
no. We usually run this very tight because there's always issues coming up. One major issue that came up this year was the elevator mandated repairs. They came out to do the inspections in the cable studio and failed it. And the way that the state works is they fail you and then they start fining you. And the fine is more than the cost to repair. So it's like you just have to rush to get the repairs done. The repairs were just shy of $11,000, $10,996. In the police department, there is a transfer requested from wages to expenses in a small amount of $2,000 due to some accreditation expenses that came in a little higher than were anticipated. The chief knew about this, so he kind of put a crash on the overtime to make sure that he could absorb it in his own budget without having to take it from somewhere else. So it nets out within the police department budget. And in order to fund the elevator repair that we needed to pay, I'm proposing that we use $11,000 from the employee retiree benefits, specifically unemployment insurance. We budget $200,000 for unemployment insurance, and we're using an outside vendor to manage that process for us, and it's working out very well through the treasurer's office, so we can afford it through this particular line item.
So this is money that was saved this year, and if we don't use it for this, it would flow into free cash, not for next year, but the year after. So it's, might as well use it now.
Right.
So those are the only transfers that we have, it's a kind of a credit to the departments because they're all managing their expenses very well.
How much extra is in that unemployment insurance account?
It's about 100. We actually lowered it for next year.
Okay, so we did that.
We did, we adjusted it for next year because we could see it was successful, so I dropped it from the 200 budget to 100,000.
Excellent.
It's working out really well.
So roughly 89,000 of that will go into free cash, and
Yep,
we'll see it in a couple of years. Fiscal,
yes.
yeah.
Keeps back there thinking, okay, that's gonna
I'm
pay
running
for
the
another
fiscal
officer.
numbers in my head.
I already cut the budget for 17, so it's not gonna.
That with the cops grant.
We're in 16, but it's fiscal 18.
Right.
Skip
But we're in
Peter, that's crazy. All right, any other questions or comments for Bonnie?
No, this is pretty straightforward.
When did the elevator thing happen? Just curious.
Just recently, just this, like, May. I was like, oh my God.
And the work's done?
The work is done, I have the bill.
Okay.
I need to process.
All righty, entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request as written.
Second.
Second, okay. I have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
great. And you've got
The water
one
one?
from the water commissioners?
Yes. This is a new thing for the Finance Committee, for those of you that have been on for several years. The Water Department does have, as an enterprise fund, its own reserve fund. They budget annually $100,000 for reserve. We typically do not get requests to approve their reserve fund because they, under previous management, it just kind of happened and, it didn't really get to you guys. So I met with Scott, and he was very good about wanting to follow the process and make sure that there was more transparency in the budget. So this year, he let me know that there was going to be a request for $55,880.40. His board, the Light and Water Commissioners, have already voted to approve this request. But under the statute, it also requires a Finance Committee approval. So while this is the first one that you've seen, this is not the first time that they've actually used this in previous years.
We should have been seeing these all along.
Right.
And the reason we see the water and not the LELD is if the water department goes into deficit, the town is responsible for the deficit. So we would have to come up with the money to pay the deficit. On LELD, that's not the case. So that's why it's handled more like a town department.
For the electric, then was it fall back on the ratepayers?
Yeah, directly, yep.
So in this particular one, for the salary, the reason that the salary expenditure is over is, as a result of the audit for the last few years, our auditors have been looking at charges applied to the light department that really are water-related. So we've been trying to migrate to putting those costs into the water enterprise fund rather than having the light department fund it. There was a particular employee who started out doing work in both divisions, in light and water, and a few years ago was really just doing water work, but still through payroll was paid out of the light department. So Scott wanted to address that and correct it this year. Again, there is enough to fund it with the reserve fund transfer, but it does need to be approved by the board. It is corrected for the 17
It is
budget. So
budgeted.
their
Next
17
question,
budget was
right.
crafted knowing that this expense is in here, and you would notice that the payroll increased through the 17 budget. So I appreciate the transparency and
Yep,
having
no.
the cooperation, so.
The capital equipment expense,
Yeah, it was just, it was just a small overage in capital equipment that was purchased, so.
$800 out of budget must be tens of thousands.
Well, they could have transferred that expense to regular operations, but they want to classify it as capital, so they prefer to keep it,
Okay.
in the appropriate line item. They did have expenses that they could have used, regular expense funds.
Any other questions, comments?
Oh, I appreciate them being very transparent here, it's nice.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the Water Commission Reserve Fund transfer.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the fund transfer.
Okay, I have a motion, second.
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 We have 2 seconds, so we have 4. Okay.
Third.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Great.
Guys have it.
So are we signing, sometimes we sign things, that's out of the finance reserve, right?
Yeah. You signed the finance one.
Okay.
I just have the vote for this. so.
Okay.
Okay, good. All righty. Bonnie, do you want to give us an update on the budget calendar?
Sure.
Also in your packet, there are a couple of changes that we made when we looked at the crazy schedule this fall. And what I'll try to do is sort of build our meeting schedule around it, but this is the sort of the basis for what we'll be doing. Okay.
Yeah, this is a fluid document. It changes quite frequently through the budget cycle. What I did in this particular one, it's a double-sided document for you. The joint meetings are in bold font, so you can kind of see those called up a little bit more clearly. And we tried to stretch out the budget process. In previous years, we've always had everything kind of happen in November in anticipation for that all-day meeting that we do in the middle of November. The problem that we've run into the last few years is we have town meeting in November. So I have to prepare for town meeting. I have budget books that I need to prepare for the finance committee. The tax rate needs to be set, and that's when the work is done for that. So it's from a finance director perspective, I'm busy with the Department of Revenue and the assessors. And we have to get the bills out in December. So it's a horrible, horrible month for me. What we look to do is try to spread that process out a little bit, and and again, it's draft format, and I would encourage any feedback on it, but we've scheduled the joint all-day Saturday session for January 7th, which will allow the departments, if you're backing up from that, to get the budgets to me by the end of November, so that I have time to prepare them and get them to the Finance Committee in December, so that you have some time to review those books before the joint meeting. January has typically been a quiet month as far as budget time, so it's kind of a good place to drop this function. It'll allow me to deal with town meeting separately, deal with the budget book separately, and the tax rate setting process. It'll give me a little bit more flexibility to deal with that. Based on that timeline, I dropped in, when I know town meeting is scheduled for, which right now is November 16th. I dropped in a few suggestions for joint meetings after talking with the chair. But we can certainly add to it and modify it as we need to. So I'm hoping that this...
Does that give us enough time? Last year, we had that all-day meeting in the middle of November. Moving that out till January, it's a couple months later. Does that give us enough time to do what we need to do? Get ready
Yeah,
for-
I mean,
Absolutely.
you're going to do your meetings with the departments, your department visits.
Individually, yeah.
In October,
Yeah.
November. So you'll have a good idea of what's coming, and then I'll give you the books, which have all the detail. So when we have the joint meeting, you'll have actually more time to review those books and make notes for questions and...
So then just, I need the history lesson. Why did we set this up originally in November?
The reason we set it up in November was a reaction to the first one was in December, which was done.
Well, it was the first weekend of December, so it was the day of the
It's
holiday
right.
fair. Holiday fair. And you can't do it any later than that, so that's why it ended up in mid-November.
Got
And the reality is, not a lot happens between then and Christmas, so
So
we're fine.
having it the last week in November or the first week in January, practically speaking, is the same from our standpoint. But it does give us a little more time, wiggle room to get together with the departments. If we want to have departments and to talk to, we could do it during that time frame. But I think it makes sense to do this. But the November was really a knee jerk from
December.
getting beat up on that week that everybody they refused to come because they were all at the holiday bazaar. So we said, okay, we give up, and we backed it into November.
a good thing, it's a beautiful thing.
Seemed like a good excuse not to go.
You got it, right. So, but that's the history lesson on it.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks.
Okay, any other comments or questions for?
No, so our next joint meeting is in September.
Right,
With, school and selectmen.
Right.
Got it.
And our next meeting is August 16th, if it's not already on your calendars, please put it there. And we'll relook at this, if you have thoughts on it, we can talk about it then along with the contact assignments. Then we'll try to get everybody here for that and do that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I like getting these joint meetings going earlier. September and October, which is good.
Yep. And hopefully, doing it in January will get a little more.
Tell you what, man, I hope the Patriots aren't playing in January 7th in the playoffs. I won't be here.
Saturday morning?
Nope.
It'll be a fight for time slots. It'll be like a lottery.
There you go, right.
We're upgrading our system now to the PD direct line.
Widescreen,
It's not the same, it's not the same.
You know that other 50 grand for radios?
It went to widescreen TVs.
There you go,
That'll
right.
probably ride to Gillette.
There you go, that'll do it.
Just
right.
hope for the buys, that's all. Let's hope for a buy.
Planning ahead, huh?
Well, you know that's gonna happen.
Yeah, right. Well, they're starting 4-0, they'll have a young, agile quarterback.
0-4, you mean?
All righty. Other item we have is just a brief update on the open space properties that,
Just so that you know what properties are currently under discussion, because I don't think it's been brought to the Finance Committee as of yet, but there are a few properties that are available, and I just wanted to let you know where they are and what their estimated costs might be. The first one is the Williams property, which I know has been discussed quite a bit recently. We did just get an appraisal in on the parcel, or the portion of the parcel that's under discussion. It is the back area of the property, and it's 1.1 million, just over $1.1 million. What is still being worked out is access to the property, so there is no resolution to that area yet.
so how many acres did it actually turn out to
It
be?
turned out to be 43 acres.
Of which?
I'm sorry,
47.
7 acres. Yes, 47 acres.
And that's what we're buying, or is that,
No, 32 acres is what we would acquire. And it's back off of the road, so there's
There's no frontage?
Frontage, no.
No frontage.
At this point, that has not been resolved. There is some discussion that
It
it's, you know.
connects to other town
connects-
land, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it connects to other
Yeah.
parcels.
I mean, I understand the value of it. How do we buy a landlocked piece of property for 1.1 million bucks?
Right. So those conversations are ongoing. That's something that needs to be negotiated with the seller.
Because total lot, there is access, right? They're carving this out separately.
That is correct.
So they
There
could
is
do it
front
differently and
access
then
here.
give it access and develop it, so, right.
Ah, okay, I see, I got it.
The piece that the town could acquire does not have front access, so.
The way
they're
things are
keeping-
configured now.
Right, right.
So you're not trudging through the other house and the other property to get to this. You'd have to access it
From
from other
another
town
parcel.
lands that we already own.
This is 35K an acre.
So that's the first one.
So,
So,
and do
but-
those things get taken, that 1.1 million, all those factors get taken into account to come up with that number?
Yes.
That seems kind of high to me for
Yeah.
a landlocked piece.
But I suppose the other side of it is that if they
If
did
it
sell
was
it to
a
us for
whole.
that, they could reconfigure things and then put houses on it, and that's the gotcha, right?
The appraisal's based on the highest and best use, so.
So if you put all houses in there, which you could do because you have the frontage.
Right.
Got it.
This is the piece of property that the
Land.
town is going to try to go for a land grant,
Correct.
right?
So there's
And was
the,
this the town, or is this the conservation, whatever it is, the conservation land trust thing? The MacGyver group?
I think that this is the town.
This is the town,
This is the
okay.
town, yeah. I don't remember. This was so
But
much,
the grant isn't for the whole amount, right?
400,000
400.
the maximum.
Was this the property that we approved that appraisal?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
That's what I thought, yeah. Sorry.
It's okay, that's all right, I
that's
know,
fine.
they all,
Yeah, yeah.
after a while, yeah, right. We did have this discussion over and over again, right?
So it's
I remember
either a
this one now.
$1.1
We beat this dead
million
horse, yeah. I remember.
Buy.
So the
Or a
parcel's bigger than, I
700,000.
think they were expecting it to be a lot smaller, didn't they?
Well, it is smaller. They had estimated that it
60.
was 60 acres.
60,
And
yeah.
it's not 60. We had said, it looks like it's 45 to us.
Oh, right, right,
It was
right.
47.
Yes, got it.
Yeah.
So Bonnie, let's just say in the perfect world, the grant is awarded, we're looking at about 700,000.
700,000, right? So how do we
Where,
fund that?
where are we gonna get that kind of money to make that work?
The hope is CPC, funding would come up with.
There's enough in that bank? You're gonna have to
There is.
loan against it?
It
Well-
can cover the borrowing, right?
Cover the borrowing, right? Yeah, you
It
don't
could
have
cover the
cash.
borrowing and it could cover, some amount of money towards reducing the borrowing. All of the money that we've been putting into the CPC fund has been, you remember those town meeting appropriations where we
Yeah.
add,
Right, to
some
get the 3%.
$400,000 in? So we have added a significant
So
amount.
refresh my memory, what's in there now roughly, do you know?
I think there's about $1 million.
There's that
Between
much
the-
in there.
Between the three buckets. So what it would do is it would wipe out the open space balance.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to grab another portion of the undesignated balance. So,
But where it gets interesting, and this is back to the priority discussion, so that's Williams' property. Now we talk about the Smith property next.
Right.
It's another beautiful piece of property that we want to get.
I
And
don't,
so-
I'm struggling with the Smith property because it's already got a conservation restriction on it.
I agree.
I find that very hard for us to say, let's go spend more money for something that can't be built on anyway.
It's just
to
a matter of
get-
whether public access or not is what it amounts to, is that somebody else
It's a
does it
nice scenic
privately.
vista, it's a beautiful piece of
Well,
land.
It
and you
is,
can-
well, it is beautiful.
the thing that's interesting about that particular parcel is where the conservation restriction is already in place, the value on that property will be less. So it will be cheaper to acquire it and gain access because the conservation restriction's on it already. So it's not a market.
That's
you
true.
You can't get, houses on it.
That's true. However, is it the best use of our dollars to buy a piece of land that can't be developed just to have public access to it? And how many people, how many people are gonna use it, it comes down to that whole equation, or are we better off taking those funds and putting them towards something else that might be a more strategic piece of property to buy?
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, well, let's see what they come back with, but to your point, what is the next one down the road? Whether it's Smith or someplace else. And do we have we don't have the MBTA land, right?
It is.
It is?
It's here in that packet. The MBTA one, it's labeled Mass DOT surplus on the map. It looks like this. And it is a parcel off of Boxborough Road. Now, it is across the street from the Williams property.
So this little guy right here, right, this,
Yes.
Yeah,
this spaghetti lot.
The appraisal that Mass DOT came back with on that was $205,000. My understanding is that, they were originally looking at selling it to a developer who owns an adjacent parcel there. So this would protect it at that level.
And why do we want this?
Why would we
Something
want-
special about this one?
so
We can
the,
look at the Williams.
so the deer can run up onto Route 2, I don't know,
I mean, that makes sense if I'm understanding this correctly, so this is the Williams property, but
Correct.
we only get the.
we're not getting the frontage on Boxborough Road.
Right.
So
You don't have the
there's no,
contiguous piece,
exactly,
unless there's a right-of-way or something.
Which one's William?
this is the Williams, but you're not looking at the part that's down
Right,
here.
so
You're looking at this stuff
somewhere in
up here,
here,
yeah, I mean, you're kind of
somewhere
probably
in
looking at
there.
a slice here and this piece.
So they don't connect right
They
there.
don't connect. They won't
Unless
connect
there's
to
some
what we're
agreement.
looking at.
Yeah, so I don't know what the,
Unless they can negotiate that with,
yeah, I don't know, but
And how many acres again is the DOT property?
5.3.
So there's 5 house lots.
Well, it's different. They're, the
Although
adjacent piece.
Yeah, it may not be the frontage for 5. Maybe, I don't know.
That 5-acre parcel is next to another large parcel that a developer was
see
looking
this-
to,
this
Combine
piece,
them?
right.
this piece here.
No,
So he's, looks like he's got a right-of-way in here.
Right. Planning board hat. No, it looks like it's landlocked. Oh, Oh, it's this piece here,
I don't know.
or is it this big one?
The big one.
The big one that's landlocked?
So
I think he owns not just that large one, but another one that goes out to the road, so there'd be.
This one right here, Bob?
Yeah, that's what it
Yes.
looks like. Interesting. So where does that lot have access to anything?
I think
It's
there's
either
a few
this.
lots there that he owns.
He owns,
So
okay.
he'll have frontage out to Boxborough and.
But again, owning it to own it versus owning it for some purpose. What is the value to the town of owning it?
Right.
You know, just to your, I think it was your earlier point, you know, that it comes up when we want it, so.
But $200,000 is real money, I mean, that's real. I mean, it's half of the cost of the other one, you know, after the grant possibly, right? So that's, I don't understand why we're even talking about that one.
Okay, well, so those are the two pieces that are on the radar screen.
Three, Williams,
Smith?
Smith, and Boxborough Road.
And do we have a value for Smith yet?
No. No, not yet. But it was discussed that with the conservation restriction on it already, it might be worth, you know, just two houses. You know, what the cost of two lots or something, so which is significantly less than in one.
It was my understanding, and I may be wrong on this, but at least several of the parcels in the Smith group of parcels of land, within the conservation restriction, they maintain the right for one house lot on each of those properties.
That's correct.
So, you know, if the town says, no, we don't want it, then they'll sell it off for one or two or three house lots. And the person that buys it, they can put a house on it, but they can't do anything else with it. Like, you know, it'd be a huge piece of property for one house, but I'm pretty sure at least.
Yep,
at least
three of
two-
them. I think three of them. I think
Okay,
three of
so-
them.
So three of the
So
four
they have
properties.
three separate parcels?
Yeah, they
Oh,
do.
they're
Four parcels, actually.
Yeah, yeah, Paul and Edith sort of picked up land
Right.
as they went, so.
And is any of that, isn't some of that in Harvard as well?
I think some of it is. And I think it's probably the fourth one, though, without the house lot that goes over, that connects with Harvard Conservation Land.
So what, do they have any skin in this game? Are we talking to them?
Not yet. I think there's some discussions, but I don't think there's anything.
I don't know, but it
And, I
would
mean, I don't
make
think
sense
they've
if we
expressed any particular interest at this point, but
try to do that. But, okay, so, I mean, that's the update. And do you have any sense as to what kind of timing people are looking to have hearings on this or discussions on it? Or is it on the selectmen's?
My understanding is that the plan is, at least for the Williams property and the Boxborough Road, MBTA property, to have them ready for a fall town meeting for consideration.
Who is driving that bus?
The selectmen and the conservation.
So the selectmen want to do this?
They have not weighed in on an opinion on this yet. They have not formally voted. They are just getting the legwork done so that it could be ready for a fall.
even the Boxborough one, the MBTA land.
Yeah.
And they're driving that, and the Conservation Commission is saying, yes, we want to buy this.
Yes.
Okay.
Does any land
So-
ever come up, and I've asked this question before, does land ever come up where the Conservation Commission says, nah, we don't really need that one? I mean, does that ever happen, or is it, if it's open land, I mean, in this town, almost everything has some benefit, right? And okay.
Okay.
You know, just, what?
18 Laura Street's available if you want. Parking for 6 vehicles on it.
Bonnie, if it does hit the selectmen's meeting, prior to our next meeting, could you at least raise a flag so any of us that wanted to go could go, or you don't have anything else to do on
On a Monday night?
Does it make sense for, I mean, do you want to even just Do you want to take a vote now and say, do we have a preference, or do we have an opinion on any of these? Or you rather wait till the selectmen get theirs and then?
I don't know what to say.
I'd like to see the final details, if there's some negotiation that's going on with this Williams property as far as frontage and that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to weigh in at this point. I mean, on the surface, it seems like 1.1 is a lot of money for a landlocked piece of land. I get the whole best use with all of the lot, but, you know, if there's something that could be obtained where it creates some sort of access to get to that other MBTA piece of property, well, that changes the game a little bit, because now you've got a contiguous piece of preserved property that might be more valuable, but
There's a lot more work.
there's a
that-
lot of balls up in the air
Right.
there that we need to kind of understand before I think we can weigh in and make a decision.
I just wanted to make sure you knew that they were under discussion, but there is
I
a lot
appreciate
of,
that.
a lot of work going on.
Yeah.
It's going to be a 3-night fall town meeting.
You think?
Well, it's going to be 2 nights on the field alone. Right?
It could be. It could be
Great
quick.
if we get what we want.
Well, you get on the agenda first.
Or if they don't get what they want. Keep dragging this out, we're not gonna vote yet till.
The luxury suites might be over the top, but, you know, we'll see what happens.
You thought I was kidding, didn't you? Alrighty. Okay, just around the table, any updates from any groups that you're in contact with?
Why is the fire chief here? He hasn't said anything all night.
Yeah, he just wants to
Oh,
make
you're
sure.
planting seeds or something? You need money too?
I want to get onto your August agenda.
You know he's up to 9 million, right?
He's good.
How's the design work coming along?
Well, and Fred is accurate. But the other cost estimator came in this morning, and he's right on par. It creeped up slightly, but not a noticeable amount. But we're right under 9, in the ballpark of 9. Or
Funny
right
how those
under.
quotes come in just about what you had budgeted and planned, huh? Amazing how that works. Yeah,
It's more than I had planned.
more, way more,
More than
yeah.
I had planned.
We're already making some cuts with it, so it's,
Scott, when will that be done?
27.
yeah, it'll be ready to go out to bid in September.
For
But do you
construction.
mean the construction complete, or just?
Oh, no, when would the construction go out to bid?
September,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah.
The goal is to
Beginning
get
of
everything in hand in time to get it printed in the book that goes out for town meeting.
Got it.
So,
Excellent.
It will be done.
Okay.
Good. So be it.
Just a quick update. So I believe there were 8 firms that responded to our RFQ. They are being opened tomorrow. The sealed bids are open tomorrow.
there were 8 that showed up for that meeting.
Thank you. There were 8 that showed up for the meeting. I'm not sure how many submitted proposals.
We haven't started getting the proposals. We'll get them tomorrow. They always come in the
At the last minute, yeah.
There were, I want to say, 42 packages given out for design and maybe 20 for the OPM. So there are a lot of packages out there.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the process that has to take place is the OPM has to be on board, I don't know, I guess. Before you let
Before you
design.
choose the designer.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the next step, however long that process takes, and then you go out to design.
So, the
Is
RFQ
it-
was for what? You didn't already say this is what we want? Explain this process to me a little bit more. The RFQ was for design or for construction bid?
Design, yeah, so the RFQ is for a designer to, we came up with a list of needs and wants, and said, okay, design something based on this
Okay.
parameter. Knowing that, okay, we'll pick and choose and
Okay.
right? You know, they'll come back and say, you know, if you want, you know, the luxury suites, it's gonna cost you this much, and we can say, okay, let's scrap that idea. So that's, we should have a designer picked, I believe, again, what was it, the OPM?
The OPM first, and then
First.
you can do design right after, once the OPM's on.
Right, so but I believe within the next week or two, we should have
And you choose a designer just based on cost, they say, we can do this for you for this fee?
No.
Or so,
No, it's
I think a
not
lot of this is
RFQ.
gonna be do they get us, right? Are they gonna do the right things for us and things like that?
The
How do you do
RFQ
that?
Yeah.
Right?
is a request for qualification, so you're.
Oh,
what
it's not
you do,
request for
there's no-
quote, request for qualification.
Yes, so
Okay.
the committee will review the submittals and decide and rank the proposals. So they will pick the firms that they feel best meet the needs of the group. And then they will enter into negotiations with that firm for a price. If they cannot negotiate to a price that is, you know, deemed agreeable, they will go to the next ranked firm,
That's right.
so.
Betsy, the money that was appropriated in May,
Yeah?
that's what's used to not only pay your OPM, but also pay your designer.
Designer.
$235,000, that's what that money is used for. And generally speaking, the owner's project manager gets the majority of their money during the construction. So they get a small amount, the majority of it goes to the architect, designer, whatever you want to call them. That's how we've all done it in the buildings we've designed.
Okay,
So
so
the
you're
OPM
choosing
makes
that
it-
designer for this, so it's just based on qualifications, they've done it before and so on, but also somewhat that they understand. I mean, somehow they portray that they really do understand what
Well,
you're trying to do and that your priorities and so
You
on.
gotta check references, like we had to do that,
Yeah.
because we picked it all kind of quick, and we just get on the phone and said, would you hire him again? And that's what your due diligence shows.
Yeah.
From there, you also buy same thing with your OPM, you're calling references to say, because they're giving you projects of all the fields they built.
Right,
And you get a feel for, when you talk to that person that says, why would they put me down as a reference? Well, then you just move on to the next person.
they didn't listen, or they did listen, right, or they, okay.
Yeah.
You know, did they bring it in on time and in budget? And, you know, those are-
Okay, all right.
So that's moving along. Yep, yep. Nothing.
And you were happy with that process, Tom, and you felt like everybody was getting heard and that where you end up with the RFQ represented a lot of different things and,
Yes,
Things to
yeah,
account.
there was a lot of good town input, a lot of great ideas, and, you know, it's not a monumental project, it's, you know, the fire station's gonna be a much bigger, more complex, you know, project. But there was some good input, and it was very collaborative. You know, you would think based on how town meeting went, that there'd be a lot of, you know, bickering and back and forth. It wasn't like that at all. It hasn't been like that. It's been very good, yeah.
obviously, based on your good demeanor and keeping things in line, huh?
Well, I gotta say, Check to Coast and Fontanella have done a really good job of kind of running the committee and, you know, keeping things flowing and making sure that, you know, people aren't kind of getting out of control, and not that people have, but they've just kind of kept things very tight. So it's been good.
And you don't think people at the end aren't gonna say, oh, yeah, they just did what they wanted to do anyway? It's not gonna, you don't think if they're gonna come out feeling that way?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's interesting. I really don't know how this thing's gonna
Okay,
go from a, you know, I know the surface, the playing surface is gonna be the most hotly debated topic. I really don't know where that's gonna go. We have Tom Irwin coming in, they're a big, you know, they do fields and they do, you know, fertilizer and all that stuff for large fields and golf courses. And they're coming in tomorrow night to present and talk about, okay, here's, you know, if you want to use do a grass surface with multiple sports, here's what you can expect. And so it should be a valuable session.
No, I actually read an article, sort of out of the blue, saying that different sports, there are different ideal artificial surfaces, where the small ball sports, lacrosse and field hockey, prefer one type of surface that the ball rolls faster and more true and all that stuff. And the other sports, soccer and football, tend to prefer a little more lush surface. You don't want to hurt those big boys when they fall down, right? But it is.
I've heard that. I've heard
I mean, I
that.
read the article. I should have cut it out and sent it along, but it made the case that there are two different style surfaces, are small ball and large ball surfaces.
I was just talking about your emergency.
I have no idea where that came from.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No, it's funny.
See, you don't need radios.
I told you.
Just get Snapchatted.
There you go.
As the guy goes.
And what I heard is that there's a synthetic grass that kind of lays over, that it doesn't stick straight up, it kind of lays flat. And that's conducive to, that's preferred for the small ball.
So I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah,
just
whereas
read it.
football and
It's right. I
soccer,
don't know.
the synthetic grass is sticking straight up, and you've got the,
Teed up.
whatever you have in there as the padding is keeping everything kind of straight up in the air.
Sounds like we need two fields.
So that could be the, according to the information, you can play both. You can play on both surfaces. It's just
One
one
is more, is ideal.
Right.
Okay. I read it and I just, makes sense or not.
Yeah.
Do like they do in Arizona, they roll it out in the sun and then they roll it back.
Well, Mike Lynn said when he came here in the fall, when he was first doing the road show, is that soccer prefers grass. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and soccer, soccer is definitely not hard on fields. Because of the nature of the game, it's played all over the field, whereas, lacrosse is very condensed in two areas. You look at any lacrosse field and,
they're destroyed there, huh?
right.
Interesting, okay. Well,
Yeah, I've got nothing. I've got nothing at this point.
no, mm-mm. Quiet in summertime, yeah.
Okay, great. I'll entertain a
I move
motion
we
to
adjourn?
adjourn.
Second.
Hearing none, we'll stay all night.
Oh, I thought you said.
I did.
He said
He
it.
seconded it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I have a motion.
I know you
I
wanted.
don't count anymore. That didn't like long.
Why, you lost your mojo, Bonnie.
Okay, great.
Want to hit the switch,
All right.
Betsy?
Yes.